Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another Hustle and Hoops off-season preview. Today, we're going to be talking about the New Orleans Pelicans. Now, jump right into it. Congratulations, Herb Jones, on getting the bag. A 4-year, $53 million. Beautiful contract for New Orleans. Give it a year and he probably could have earned more, but 12 mil a year escalating is decent for sure, and it's $12 million. So, but the defense that he brings is obviously all NBA level, and it's a large part of what New Orleans hopes to do in the playoffs. Being able to lock up the opposing star player 1 through 5, depending on the big, but realistically 1 through 4 confidently. That's something that not many can do, and he has horizontal and vertical, rim protection, and he can guard on the perimeter, and obviously you want that shot to come around. That's a large part of his progression and why that number is what it is. And I'm very excited to see what Herb can do next year for New Orleans. That you got that tandem, and we can talk about it now, but you got that tandem with him and Trey Murphy. I really think that is just a really fun young duo. It's gonna get confusing in a year or two when you want to start all of Zion, Brandon, Herb, and Trey Murphy. It's gonna get a little confusing, but you'll figure it out. Speaking of Zion and Brandon Ingram, we gotta talk about the rumors. Supposedly the Pelicans were willing to ship one or the other for a top 3 pick in the pursuit of Scoot Henderson. That's fair. That's understandable, but it's not realistic. It's not. We're not gonna really expect New Orleans to do that, if I'm being honest. You haven't seen the full potential of what this team can do, and that we'll talk about later. But there's so many question marks to Brandon Ingram and Zion Williamson, whether it be games played or just the simple fact that since Zion basically has been drafted, we've heard that he doesn't want to be in New Orleans, or that his camp doesn't want to be in New Orleans. And I don't know. I'm not really sure. I think if they were to have done anything, they would have done it. So realistically, I don't think they're going to do anything major. That's why I'm making this video. But, they went and they signed Cody Zeller 1 year, 3.2 or something, and they drafted Jordan Hawkins, the best shooter in the draft. I think his off-ball creation, his spacing, his movement is going to bring a lot to this bench at the guard position. I think he also does a lot more than advertised. It goes beyond the shooting. He's athletic. He can handle the ball a little bit. I think he can distribute a little bit. I think he plays good defense. He's just a really solid overall player. I think he's actually relatively overlooked by a lot of draft people, whatever. And I'm very interested to see how he'll fit in next to Jose and Trey and Herb and others. Cody Zeller, I guess. But speaking of lineups, you've obviously got CJ still probably running the point. I'm assuming Brandon Ingram is going to run the 2 this season, with Trey Murphy or Herb Jones being your starting 3. I'm assuming since you gave Herb that bag, you're going to have him be your starting 3, with Trey coming off the bench. And then you got Zion hopefully at the 4 and Jonas at the 5. Off the bench, you got Jose at the 1, hopefully Jordan Hawkins at the 2, Trey Murphy at the 3, Larry Nance Jr. at the 4, and Cody Zeller at the 5. And I think that is a really solid 10-man rotation to take into this season and be confident that you can make an impact and make a serious run. For last season we saw it was short-lived, but they were a really excellent team at the beginning of the season. And I think this team has they've got a good head on their shoulders with Willie Green, and I think that with what they have, there's a lot of potential for success. Now, one major area which I think is pretty obvious is the point guard position. I think CJ McCollum is solid. I think he's a good leader. I think he's a good scorer. I think he is a good competitor, but at the end of the day, he's not a true point guard. And I think, Brandon Ingram and Trey Murphy and Zion Williams especially would all benefit, especially from a pass-first point guard, a maybe more hesitant point guard, a more careful point guard. And I'm not saying CJ isn't careful. I'm saying I have a guy in mind. I have a specific man who has steadily held a, I'm assuming positive, but at the bare minimum above even turnover ratio for his entire career so far, and genuinely is one of the best pick and roll just set runners that we have in the NBA right now, and that's Tyus Jones. It's Tyus Jones. I genuinely think that he would be probably the best fit for this team. Obviously there's more star names that you could go out and get, but if we're talking players that are actually available for this team to acquire, I think Tyus Jones is a really solid option. And you could do some finagling. I think obviously you have to wait a little while for Tyus's trade restriction to come off, because he was just recently traded, so he has to wait till after August 22nd, 60 days. So, realistically, you wait a little bit. You have 14 players, I believe, on your roster as of right now. Yeah, so you wait a little bit. His restriction goes away. Washington has a little bit more contracts to match someone like CJ, or, you throw Jonas Valanciunas, which I don't really like the idea of throwing for Tyus. I like the idea of keeping him. So maybe it's like, Tyus makes $14 million, so you got to match that. So I'm assuming it would be one of those two, or Larry Nance Jr., I guess, would be the other option. Yeah, Larry Nance Jr. would be the other option. I don't really see them giving up Herb after, what he's done for this team on the defensive end, what he's proved to be able to do. I wouldn't really be so willing to just give him up, even for such a steady and consistent point guard like Tyus Jones. You keep Herb around for the success, for the winning, because that's what he's gonna benefit. Yes, what he's gonna help you do. But if it means giving up Jonas, it means giving up Jonas. If it means giving up CJ and getting him back, a big contract, or some bullshit and giving up some picks, it is what it is. I mean, I think that's worth the price, and you end up with a really solid lineup. And I really like this Pelicans team. I think between this, the self-creation and, scoring that Brandon Ingram and Trey Murphy and CJ bring, the pure beauty of Zion Williamson's straight line drive. I think there's a lot of ways that this team can have paths to success. I'm giving you just one, but I'm very excited to see what this team has in store for this season. And I really am hoping that we can get a full season of Zion Williamson, because that would be key. That would be key for sure. But that's all. I don't think I have anything else. Shouts out Najee Marshall. I didn't say shit about Najee Marshall. I barely said anything about Jose Alvarado. I also barely said anything about Kerry Lewis Jr. So I'm a fraud. But it's okay, because